So, have you ever just stopped and looked at one of those giant container ships and thought, how on earth does that even work? I mean, how does anybody keep track of every single part of a machine that big and that complicated? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret guides that make it all possible. And you really have to think about it. We're talking about something that's basically a floating city, right? It has to make its own power, carry its own supplies, house an entire crew, and haul thousands of tons of stuff across the ocean. How do you even begin to manage that kind of complexity, especially if you're just stepping onto that ship for the very first time? And that quote really gets to the heart of it. For the officers and engineers who run these massive vessels, you just can't memorize the unique layout of every single ship you might end up on. It's impossible. So you need some kind of universal language, a set of instructions that gets you up to speed and fast. And the answer is actually pretty elegant. It's the ship's plans. But these aren't just a bunch of boring drawings. Nope. They are the ship's DNA, its instruction manual, and its emergency guide, all rolled into one. The shipbuilder and owner make sure they're right there on board, often posted up in the passageways so anyone can see them. Okay, so let's start our little tour of these documents with the big one, the most fundamental plan of all, the General Arrangement Plan. You can think of this as the master map for our entire floating city. This plan is really where the idea becomes reality. You've got these detailed drawings on paper, and then you have the massive steel ship they represent. The general arrangement is the bridge that connects the two, showing you exactly how everything is supposed to fit together in the grand scheme of things. So what does it actually show you? Well, it's like a bird's eye view. It gives you the shape of the ship from the side, that's the profile view, and then it gives you a complete floor plan for every single deck, from the very front of the ship, through all the rooms where the crew lives, all the way down into the engine rooms. It's all laid out right there. So now we know where everything is. The next obvious question is, what can this ship actually hold? And that takes us from the ship's basic geography to its inventory. And all of that is detailed in something called the capacity plan. And believe me, it's a lot more than just the cargo it's carrying. A ship is a living, breathing system. It has to manage huge amounts of different liquids just to operate. You've got fresh water for the crew, ballast water to keep the ship stable, bunkers, which is just a fancy word for fuel, and all the lubricating oils that keep the giant engines from seizing up. And that's exactly what the capacity plan is for. It's the official record book for every single tank and storage space on the ship. It doesn't just guess, it gives you the exact cubic capacity of every single space. And that information, it's absolutely crucial for making sure the ship is stable and never, ever gets overloaded. Okay, so far we've talked about normal, everyday operations. The layout and what it can carry. But where these plans really prove their worth is when things go seriously wrong. Now we're going to look at the plans that are basically the ship's survival guide. Just picture it for a second. You're out there, maybe hundreds of miles from land. An alarm starts blaring. There's no 911 to call, no fire department that can just show up. In those moments, it's all on the crew, and how they respond is everything. And that response, it's guided by a very specific set of plans. This survival guide really breaks down into 3 key parts. You have the docking plan, which is all about preventing a disaster before it happens. And then you have the fire control and damage control plans. And those are for when a crisis is already happening. Let's take a quick look at each one. First up is the docking plan. Now, this might not sound like an emergency plan, but trust me, it is. It's about preventing a total structural failure. See, when a huge ship goes into dry dock for repairs, it rests on these big blocks. If you put those blocks in the wrong spots, the ship's own weight could literally bend or break its back. This plan makes sure that never happens. Next is the fire control plan. This is the crew's roadmap for fighting one of the scariest things that can happen at sea, a fire. It shows you exactly where every fire extinguisher is, every fire hose, every alarm, and every single escape route. When a space is filling with smoke, you can imagine how this plan becomes an absolute lifeline. And finally, we have the damage control plan. So what if the hull gets punctured and you're taking on water? This is the playbook for staying afloat. It shows all the watertight sections of the ship and, most importantly, tells the crew how to manage flooding to fix any dangerous tilt or list in the ship. This is the plan that helps them save the entire vessel. So as we start to wrap this up, it becomes pretty clear that we're talking about something way more important than just a few rolled up pieces of paper, right? We've just walked through 5 of the most essential blueprints: the general arrangement, the capacity plan, the docking plan, the fire control plan, and the damage control plan. Each one gives you a different, totally vital piece of the puzzle. When you boil it all down, what these plans really are is the ship's memory. They hold all the wisdom of the people who designed and built it, and they pass that critical knowledge down to every single crew member who ever steps on board. They make sure that no matter how complex the ship is, the information needed to run it safely is always right there. They are its silent, unseen, and absolutely essential lifeline. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. We rely on these incredibly detailed plans to keep these ships safe on the ocean. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other invisible blueprints and unspoken plans are quietly working in the background, keeping all the complex systems of our own world afloat every single day?